Alrighty, thank you everyone for joining. I hope you all have had a great day. I know it is the afternoon. So today we have Brooklyn Voter Alliance along with Ms. Kathleen from she'll be joining us today as well to go over some voter education and ballot proposal. So now we'll just have the assembly member join us to give her brief introduction and then we'll proceed.
All right. Thank you, everyone. Can everybody see me? Yes, you can hear me? Great. I just want to thank you to my team. Thank you for this 8058 virtual voter education with our civic engagement task force. I want to shout out to my office, especially Kyla Burrows, who is leading the charge as in my special assistant. She also doing a leading charge for all civic engagement when it comes to the youth. Uh, all the way to the older adults. So there's been several engagements around voter registration and education in our older adult centers. And we've been taping a lot. So thank you for that. And I just want to thank all the presenters today just to get clarity. A lot of people, as I walk down the streets, as we go into the community, we're hearing, I don't know what's on the ballot, who's on the ballot again, what's these proposals about? I'm hearing so many different things. And we want to make sure people know the deadlines that's coming up. They know that November 5th is, the election day. They know about early voting. And we thought the best way to do that is make sure we have this conversation via Zoom just to make sure people are educated on it. And whoever is not here, we could definitely share it out to our friends and families, because you get those phone calls as soon as October 26th come around and people say, I'm about to vote. What do I do? So we're not going to tell people who to vote for, who not to vote for, right? But we're going to just basically educate people on what's the process, who's going to be on the ballot, and what those proposals look like. So I will hand it back over to Kyla to give us some house rules and some introductions. Thank you so much. Turn it back over to Kyla.
All right. So house rules. So we're just asking that everyone will write their questions out and type them in the chat, so that we don't interrupt our presenters today and that they can present their presentations in full, um, with no distractions. And then towards the end, we'll have a Q&A portion where you can ask whatever questions that may come up, and go from there. Next up, we will have Dalton Robinson come on to do some greetings and prayer or words of encouragement.
All right. Is Dalton on? Is he on yet? I don't think so. All right.
All right, so with that being said, I guess now we can move on to our presenters. Next up, we will have Jan from Brooklyn Voter Alliance to us different information about voter registration, the ballots, the different proposals that come up on the ballots, and go from there. So, Jan, if you'd like to share your screen, you can start your presentation.
All right, thank you so much. And thank you to the Assembly member for having BVA come join you. I'm just going to give you a quickie introduction to who we are. We are an all-volunteer, nonpartisan organization working to protect and expand voting rights here in New York. We might have seen us in different places around the neighborhood. We are throughout Brooklyn doing pop-ups, going and talking to voters and making sure people know the deadlines and know what's on your ballot. So I'm going to quickly go through sort of what's on your ballot and a little voting 101. So we are here today because we are talking about the 2024 general election. As the Assembly member mentioned, early voting starts on Saturday, October 26th, and it runs through Sunday, November 3rd. And then on Tuesday, November 5th is election day. So that means throughout that period of time, you can vote in person. And of course, if you've already requested your absentee ballot, you could have been planning on voting already. what are we voting on? We are voting on everything from the US president, our US senator, US House of Representatives. So those are all on the federal level. And then we are voting for state senate, state assembly, and judges. Those are mostly on the state level. There might be a couple of city judges, depending on where you live, on your ballot. And then we are also voting for ballot referendums, which are laws. I'm going to talk about those in a little bit more detail right now. So because we are voting on so many things, we are going to have a 2-page ballot that is going to have a contest and or laws to vote on both sides. So please flip your ballot over so you can see. The first proposal we are voting on, and there will be 6, so there are a lot, is titled An Amendment to Protect Against Unequal Treatment. I'm going to talk about all of these ballot proposals because even though we do have plain language requirements for any ballot proposals, all of these ballot proposals are not exactly written in language you and I would talk to each other in. So some of them are a little bit more legalistic. For example, this one, it says this proposal would protect against unequal treatment based on ethnicity, national origin, age, disability, and sex, including sexual orientation, gender identity, and pregnancy. It also protects against unequal treatment based on reproductive health and autonomy. That isn't everyday language. So what does it really mean? In our state constitution, we only have anti-discrimination language protecting against race discrimination or discrimination based on religion. And this would expand it to include ethnicity, age, disability status, LGBTQ populations, and reproductive rights, which would include pregnancy outcomes and abortion. So LGBTQ, you'll notice, wasn't in the ballot proposal, neither was the word abortion. So I just want to make sure everyone knows what this means. So if you vote yes, it will mean you will add these extra protections into the Constitution. And if you vote no, you just leave everything as is. We did have a law passed in the previous legislative session protecting abortion rights, but this would enshrine it into the Constitution. So it's up to you what you want to do with it. The other 5 are city charter referendums. The mayor constituted a city charter commission earlier this year, and then they spent 3 months getting information and making proposals, and they produced a report in July, and these are the proposals that are going to be on the ballot this year. As you can see by the names of these, they all seem very technical, so I want to make sure everyone knows what they are. So proposal 2 just really talks about cleaning public property. As you can see by the actual ballot language, it says it would amend the city charter to expand and clarify the Department of Sanitation's power to clean streets and other city property and require disposal of waste in containers. Just want to make sure everyone knows that is part of it, but it doesn't include another aspect of it. There's only so much room on the ballot, and so they didn't include everything. The other part of this would also expand the power of the Department of Sanitation to be an enforcement agency against street vendors. And so voting yes would expand the Department of Sanitation's authority and jurisdiction. They would be able to enter parks, clean the parks. Any street vendor that was on any public property, they would have enforcement authority over. No means Parks is still responsible for cleaning, and the vendors inside Parks and the police are still responsible by themselves. The police would still be responsible for enforcing no matter what, but the Department of Sanitation would not be able to do it. The third one has the really exciting name of additional estimates of the cost of proposed laws and updates to budget deadlines. This language just says the proposal would amend the city charter to require fiscal analysis from the council before hearings and votes on laws, authorize fiscal analysis from the mayor, and update budget deadlines. What it means is it is requiring more analyses from city council. There's a little from the mayor, but it would also give the mayor more time to meet budget deadlines. So a yes would mean, yes, you want more fiscal analysis from the city council and you're cool with the mayor having more time for producing the budget. The no means it's back to what we have right now with city council. Proposal 4 says more notice and time before votes on public safety legislation. This also is a very short one. It says this proposal would require additional public notice and time before city council votes on laws respecting the public safety operations of the police, correction, and fire departments. What it really means is anytime city council is going to vote on any law that would affect those 3 departments, they need that will get put on pause to give those 3 departments and the mayor a 30-day window to hold hearings. So a yes would say, yep, that's what I want. I want the agencies and the mayor to have the power to have hearings before city council votes on anything affecting those 3 agencies. And a no would be those agencies would be treated like every other agency in the city. The laws would get passed, the city council could ask for a hearing, the mayor could ask for a hearing, the agencies could ask for a hearing. However, it works in the system now. The 5th one is about capital planning. This one is incredibly technical. You wouldn't know that from the language, which just says this proposal would amend the city charter to require more detail in the annual assessment of city facilities, mandate that facility needs inform capital planning, and update capital planning deadlines. This one is really about the citywide statement of needs, which is all of the capital projects, which means the ones that are real physical entities that you can use as an accounting term, capitalize over many years to affect the cost. So the cost doesn't hit in one budget year, but it affects over time. So it would just require more of that. It would move the deadline from November 1st of one year to the following January 16th, which would also change the public hearing. There's even more detail about this one in the city charter commission report. But a yes would basically say, yes, we want more detail in the citywide statement of needs, and it would change the deadlines. A no would be the status quo there. And then the last proposal is minority and women owned business enterprises, film permits, and archive review boards. So this one, very short. The proposal would amend the city charter to establish a chief business diversity officer, authorize the mayor to designate the office that issues film permits, and combine archive boards. So it would create this new chief business diversity officer. It would switch the office that handles film permits for movies that are made here, for television shows that are shot here, from the Department of Small Business Services to the Mayor's Office of Media and Entertainment. And then there are two sort of historical archive agencies, and it would combine them. So a yes would say yes to establishing this Chief Business Diversity Officer, yes to the mayor determining the agency that handles the film permits, and it would combine the boards. As soon as we vote on this one, this would take effect immediately, by the way. And a no would be status quo right now. So I know we're going to have time for questions, so I just want to talk about some general voting 101s here. So I mentioned the dates for the election. I just want to mention a few other things. One is we do actually have a few different ways to vote. You can vote early in person, that starts October 26th. You can vote on election day in person, that's November 5th, or you can vote absentee, or what we call an early mail ballot. So the big things to know here is voter registration. The deadline for that, if someone in your life is not registered to vote, they have to register by October 26th. The good news there is that also is the first day of election day. So that is what we would call Golden Day. And so if they are not registered to vote, as long as they go to the right poll site, they could register and vote by affidavit, which I'll explain in a minute, on that day. Otherwise, you can register. I would recommend everyone register online over this week. If you need someone to register, you can go to vote.nyc, and there's a link there to do online voter registration. You also, if you need an absentee or an early mail ballot, you have to make the application for that online by October 26th. And if you're going to mail that back instead of drop it off, it needs to be postmarked before or on election day, November 5th. This doesn't usually get discussed, so I want to make sure you all know as well. We have a New York State Voters Bill of Rights, and that means you do have rights as a voter, and I want to make sure you all know what they are. So the first one is obvious. You have the right to vote if you are registered to vote. You have the right for your vote to count. You have the right to vote in secret. That's why we have the privacy booths in poll sites. That's why if you get a ballot mailed to you, you can do it in your own home. Freedom in voting means you are free from intimidation. That means no one should be able to coerce your vote in any way, and you have the power to decide for yourself how you're going to vote. Permanent registration means once you are registered to vote in New York State, even if you move, and if you move within the same county or you move to another county, you will still be able to vote if you vote in the poll site in New York City where you are assigned based on your new address. You can have accessible elections. That includes physical accessibility. We have something called a ballot marking device in every poll site, so you can get help marking your ballot, or we have language access, so you can get language access as well, including interpreters. Assistance in voting means you can bring anyone you want to the poll site to help you if you need help voting, as long as they are not your boss or your union representative. They will just have to sign something saying they are going to protect your freedom to vote and won't intimidate you, or you can ask a poll worker for help. That is what instruction in voting is. If there's something you don't understand, you can always ask about it. And if you are not in the e-poll book when you go to vote. It is your right to ask for an affidavit ballot. You can fill that out. The outside of the envelope is a voter registration form, but if you are already registered to vote, your vote will count, and all of those affidavit ballots do get counted. I know there's a myth out there that they don't, but that's not true. It is federal law that boards of elections have to review all of those ballots, and they have to send you a letter after the election letting you know whether your vote counted or not. So just quickly going over this, what it means in a poll site. You can ask a poll worker for help. You can bring your voter guide with you or any other material you want. If the scanners break down, you will still be able to vote. Don't leave. If you're, as I just mentioned, if your ballots, if your name is not on the e-poll book, you can request an affidavit ballot, which is the same exact ballot as the scannable one. It just can't go in the scanner. As long as you are in line before the polls close, so early voting starts Saturday at 8 a.m. It goes to 5 p.m. on the weekends, and during the week it's 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. If you are in line, just stay in line. You will be able to vote no matter how many people are there. And if you make a mistake, you can always ask for a new ballot. It's called a spoiled ballot. You have 3 chances to do that. If you mess up twice, I would encourage you to use the ballot marking device to make sure it works. And if you need help voting in your own language, you can have that as well. I'm not going to go over everything here, but I'm just going to mention, if you're voting by absentee ballot, there is a request form on the New York City Board of Elections website, and that ballot is postage paid. So you can either put it in the mail, and again, it has to be postmarked before or on November 5th, or you can drop it off at any poll site in Brooklyn. You don't have to go to your own poll site, whatever poll site you're by, or if somebody needs to bring it, or you need to bring someone else's, you can do that. If you request an absentee ballot and you decide to vote in person, you're going to have to vote by affidavit because of a new state law. Absentee ballots are for specific reasons to be absent. An early mail ballot, you don't need an excuse, so you can make a request. That is a different request link on the New York City Board of Elections website. So just make sure you go to the right one for your circumstance, and all of the other categories still apply. It is postage paid. If you don't want to put it in the mail, you can drop it off at the Board of Elections or at any poll site. So at BVA, we like to tell people to make a plan to vote. And part of making a plan is making sure your registration is active. So you can either call the New York City Board of Elections, or you can go on the New York, go to nycvotersearch.com and look up your name, birthday, and zip code and see that your voter registration is active. As I mentioned, you want to know where is your poll site. Your poll site might have changed. They expanded the number of early voting sites and election day sites this year. So you want to make sure that you weren't assigned a new one, because you have to vote at the one you're assigned. So look that up at findmypollsite.vote.nyc. You should have gotten the voter guide from the NYC Votes, and hopefully you got your fast pass from the New York City Board of Elections, and you probably want to make a plan who are you going to go to the polls with. So whether it's early or on election day, bring somebody with you. When you show up at a poll site, I'm sure all of you are longtime voters, so you know You do have to sign that e-poll book. If you bring your fast pass, it will be a lot easier. I have my fast pass in my phone, because if you have an iPhone, you can just put it in your wallet, so you don't need to bring the plastic thing with you. You have to go to the poll site for which you are assigned. We do not have open vote centers here in New York City. So always go to where you are assigned and or for your current address. And of course, get your sticker and encourage other people to vote. And I have to say this as a poll worker myself, it's not too late. Sign up to be a poll worker, encourage other people to be a poll worker. We need as many poll workers as we can get. It's a great job to have to help people vote. So I'm going to end this share here. That was a lot that I just threw at everyone, but I hope that was within the time period. Trying to go through my time. I saw that people had questions, but I didn't see what they were. Should I answer them now, Kyla, or wait?
I've tried to answer some of them, but some that I think are applicable here would be, what steps can I take to ensure that my vote is counted, and how can I track my ballot after I voted?
So the only way you
Can I
can track,
interject real quick?
yeah.
All right. So at this time, I just wanted to say thank you, though, for presenting. We know that it's important to know what we're voting for and who we are voting for as well. I just wanted to introduce Kathleen Daniels as well. She is the chief. No worries, no worries. It's okay. It's okay. The chief democracy officer from Democracy NYC. So at this time, she'll do her brief presentation as well as introducing questions that people may have and answers that you will.
Okay, so we'll have Allison, sorry. So Brooklyn Level Up is leading the questions. Thank you, Allison, the executive director. So right after the presentation, I'm assuming that we'll go into the question and answer, Kyla? Right after Stanley.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you so much, Allison.
Thank you so much. Good evening, everybody. I am Kathleen Daniel, and I serve as New York City's Chief Democracy Officer and the Program Director for Democracy NYC that is housed in the Civic Engagement Commission. Now, what does that mean, right? So what do I do? What I do all day, every day, is educate voters on upcoming elections, what's on the ballot, how to vote, and information on what's at stake, most specifically and most importantly, what is at stake when you cast your ballot in this election, and what do these people actually do, right? Because often we're upset about things that happen or don't happen in the city, and we don't know if this is city, state, or federal that is controlling this, right? Like, who does that? And I make sure that voters are civically informed and savvy so that they can be civically engaged. Additionally, I work to build grassroots campaigns, very much campaign style, right? Because when we vote, New Yorkers win. So my candidate in every election is you, right? Not the people that are on the ballot, but the people that would cast the ballot. And we have a crisis. For the last 12 years, we have sunk in the number of voters actually going to the polls. So we're in over the 80th percentile of people who are eligible to vote being registered, but they're just not going to the polls. And last November in the general election, we had less than 19%, and that's grading on a curve. That's really rounding up. Less than 19% of the 4.3 million registered voters showed up, right? And we've all gone to school before. So if you had an exam and you could have gotten 100 and you were coming home with a 19, your stomach hurt, right? You were looking for the long way home. And what the impact of that is when you have our local leaders, our mayor, our governor, speaking to the federal government, for example, about more money for housing and HUD and transportation and the migrant crisis, all Washington has to do, and that's anyone on the federal level, is take a look at this voter turnout. We're like, you know what? New York thinks that they're Empire State, but they can't hire me or fire me. And we go to the bottom of the list. And since when was it okay for New York to be the bottom of anything? And so we need you to come to the polls. Another reason why the impact of voting, regardless of who the candidates are or who wins the election, is tremendous for we, the residents of New York, for us, the voters, is because all of these votes are analyzed. Every vote is counted. Hard stop. Every vote counts then, right? Hard stop. Every last one. And so when people vote, people analyze these votes. Everybody who's ever run, everybody who's in power, everybody whose work is to advocate, right? Everybody who is in this electoral field, people who are looking at businesses, right? So let's say you want to have a business coming into Community Board 100. No such thing in New York, but we're just going to say that, right? So no one thinks that I'm biased. So Community Board 100, there's a bunch of businesses that want to come in there, but they know that there's going to be a process, and in order for them to have their business with the regulations and the taxes they want, that's going to be based on laws. And so if they wanted in Community Board 100, they're going to be like, wow, do these people vote? Are these people going to oppose us effectively and effectively lobby against us, right? Are they organized? And this is what happens. So when candidate X decides to run for office in 4 years, 2 years, in 5 minutes, they're going to look at who votes in that neighborhood. A lot of people complain, I only see that guy when it's time for an election, right? That's right, but only if you vote. So if your community doesn't vote, if they abstain, if they protest and don't vote, if they don't participate, is that candidate going to go and invest time in that neighborhood? No. Are they going to invest resources when they do get into power? No. And why is that? Because we didn't show up. So I'm here to encourage you, not who to vote for, but that you cast your vote, because your vote has power. Your vote says, I am here. And you're not voting. This is not dating. You're not voting for the person that you totally love, right? For the person that you completely agree with. You can choose to vote for the person that will advocate the most for your community, the person that will bring the most value, that will bring the most resources. You can vote for the person that has the best plan to you, and not on every issue, but maybe on one or two or three issues that really matter to you. Or you can vote for the person that will do the least harm to your community, the least harm to your economic status, right? The least harm maybe to the environment or an issue that you care about. So the point is, you're not going to look for the perfect person because you won't find them. You're not necessarily going to look for the person with whom you completely agree because you won't find them. But you're voting because you are making your voice heard, and you're making it clear in your community that we're here, we matter, and we're paying attention, because then everyone running will pay attention to you. So let's talk about what's on the ballot, right? We've had an excellent presentation on everybody who's running. So do know that the local seats, city council, mayor, comptroller, public advocate, are not on the ballot right now. Okay. You're looking at federal, president, vice president. You're looking at congressional seats, right? The House, the Senate, state. You're looking at some New York State legislature, which is New York State Assembly, New York State Senator, right? But not in every district. And not in every district are people running again, or are people being challenged for their seat. So if you're going to your district and you go, wait a minute, how come I don't see? And it is because in the general election, if no one is opposing you, you're not necessarily on the ballot, right? There are also some judges' positions, but not in every district. And so you may see, if you're assisting somebody in voting, and they've got a mail-in ballot, that their ballot is completely different from yours, or very different. Everybody's ballot will have president and vice president, bar none. Everybody's ballot will have the ballot proposals, and you'll hear me call them props all the time, right? So everyone will have 6 ballot props. Everyone will have president and vice president. Other things in other areas, other districts will vary. So don't freak out if you're helping your Nana out and she's got some things on the ballot that you don't have. It's okay. It's quite all right, because it's based on geography. Okay. That said, let's talk about ballot proposals. And I'm just going to, some of this bears repeating. There are 6 of them. It's important to know that there are 6 of them, and that they are on the back of the ballot. So don't slip. You got to flip that thing over so that you can go down the line and make your choices. Ballot proposals require a yes or a no vote. Okay. And it is either yes, meaning I want you to make this change that you're discussing in the prop, or nah, leave stuff the way it is. Don't mess with that. Okay. And that is completely your choice. So yes means do this, change this, modify this, or add this the way it's stated here on this proposal on my ballot. And no says don't touch it, leave things the way they are. There will be no change. There will be no impact, right? That means then that you are either satisfied with things the way they are, or you're not moved by the perspective change, so you're just going to leave it the way it is. Okay. So that said, these 6 ballot proposals, it's also important to know the source. Proposal 1 is statewide. That will affect New York State's constitution. That means everybody living anywhere in the Empire State, upstate, downstate, Long Island, or the mighty 5 that we are in New York City. The other proposals are what we call local. That means the 5 boroughs of the city of New York. Okay. Means Brooklyn, Bronx, Queens, Manhattan, Staten Island. All right. And that's really important because now you understand the source, because the source of the other proposals, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6 are the city of New York. Okay. And they're coming from the executive, from the admin. And these are proposals for you to consider and vote either yes or no on. Okay. Let me just also recap a few things on knowing your rights. Because they bear repeating. And again, thank you to my colleagues in the space and the advocates for doing such a great job on presenting them. If you have been justice involved, if you just got out, then you can still get out the vote. Okay. The only requirement is that you update your voter registration form. Period. Case closed. Hard stop. If you got out of jail this morning, you can vote this afternoon as long as you re-register on October 26th by 11:59 p.m. and go to vote.nyc to do that. And there are many links where you can vote online, but we are encouraging you to use vote.nyc because it is the Board of Elections itself. And that goes directly into their system. By using other links that are valid, that are good, like let's say DMV, on the back side of that, DMV has to send it to B of E. And if you're waiting till the last minute, like October 26th, you don't want that process to then be, delaying you and then you miss the boat. I mean, I know none of you on this call are waiting to the last minute. That's other people that do that. But just in case, vote.nyc, it goes directly to the Board of Elections. And if you are going to vote or are going to assist someone voting who is disabled, who has an impairment, it's very important that we know, because there are many of us who have families who have young people who were special needs, and then they turn 18, they can vote. There is no academic or intellectual requirement to vote. So bring them to the polls. As long as they can vote for themselves, you will sign an oath at the Board of Elections at the poll site saying, I'm not going to coerce their vote, and you can assist them casting their vote. Very, very important that anybody who has lived in New York City 30 days prior to the election day, who is a citizen, who is 18, can vote. And the Board of Elections has amazing machines. Even if you have no appendages, you can still vote literally with your cane, with a stick, with your foot, if you don't have arms. Like, we have amazing accessible machines, so anybody anywhere can vote. A mail-in ballot also. It is a new law this year. Anybody who's registered to vote in New York State can vote by mail, and you can request that at vote.nyc. You can't miss it, because as soon as you go to that page, it's really big. It's right there. Vote.nyc and request your mailer ballot. It's free 99, guys. No reason not to. And yes, as it was said, you can drop that off at the poll site and skip the line. And who doesn't like to skip a line? Okay, so I'm going to shut up and allow questions so that we can talk about these props. But let me just go down the 6 really quickly. Number 1, and I'm going to speak in lay terms, and I'm going to speak really quickly. So Ballot Prop 1, this is talking about discrimination. It is saying, listen, you can't discriminate against people for any of these illegal reasons. And you may be familiar with some of this language because it is already in practice. If you ever had an EEO case or civil rights situation in New York, for example, you can fire somebody for any reason except an illegal reason, right? And that is race, gender, pregnancy, age, etc., right? Religion, sexual identity, etc., right? And so what this does, Prop 1, is puts in the Constitution in bold general language, right, that these things are illegal. You cannot discriminate against people and deny them their rights as a New Yorker based on these things, right? So number one, discrimination statewide goes in the state constitution. Number two, this is about garbage. So number two is trash. Yes. And what does it say? It says that the city wants the Department of Sanitation to determine how we put the garbage out. Not that we put it out, because you got to put it out, but they want the Department of Sanitation to determine how you do that. And what the Department of Sanitation is proposing, that's not going to be in the charter, but that we know operationally, they're saying no more trash bags on the curb, man. You got to put it in a container. Okay. Now, there are many schools of thought on this. Some people are like, okay, but I'm not buying a $50 container city. Sorry. Others are saying, yeah, because I'm tired of these rats, okay, because they're ruling my block. And so this is your opinion. The choice is yours. This also in this prop, so it talks about how you put out the trash. This prop is also talking about the Department of Sanitation's authority to not clean up, but to enforce the rules about keeping New York City clean, right? That means if you're in a park and you're a vendor, a food vendor, or what have you, a truck, right? And you are going to clearly have garbage, there are rules, and sanitation wants to be able to go into the park, which is normally governed by New York City parks, and tell these people you've got to clean up and this is how you're going to do it, or I'm going to give you a ticket. Now, there are multiple schools of thought about it. There was one school of thought saying, you know what, the city is too damn dirty. You need to clean it up. And I don't care whose job it is, but somebody's got to do it. And it might as well be sanitation. There are others who feel, wait a minute, because if we do this, we're going to open the door to people harassing these small businesses, mostly minority run, that are the vendors in the park. And I like to go and get my pretzel and back up off these people. So again, the choice is yours, right? And you'll forgive me. I'm going to be very Brooklyn about this, right? Because I'm speaking of Brooklyn, and it's important that we understand how we're going to live with these proposals and how to make your decision. So I'm being very candid, and I'm being very casual about it, not because this is not important, but because that we can operationalize and then turn around and tell others, right? Because I'm not speaking to you for you. I'm speaking to you for the block, for your family, for your house of worship, for your school, because again, when we vote, New Yorkers win. So number 3, and this is about the cost of proposed laws and updates to budget deadlines, right? What does that mean? So city council makes laws. The mayor does not make laws. Hard stop. The mayor does not make laws. The president of the United States does not make laws. They can veto. They can do executive orders, but law, they don't make the law, right? That is done by legislative bodies. And in the local level, that's the New York City Council. So what this proposal number 3 is saying is that when city council is conducting hearings and they're going to make laws, they want the Office of Management and Budget, these are the money people in the city, right? They want OMB, Office of Management and Budget, to provide their own proposal as to what it's going to cost. And the reason, I can't tell you the reason for this. Some feel that the reasoning or rationale for this is that the lawmakers, city council, right, because they propose these resolutions, will come up with a number and feel through their research that this is the number. But when it gets to the Office of Management and Budget says, no, you've got to factor this in and this in, and that number is different. right? Which then creates a budget issue when the mayor and the city council are proposing their two budgets, right? And can create a clash. This is a school of thought. There is another school of thought that, wait a minute, you're asking the bureaucracy to add another layer? You've got to be kidding, because who loves bureaucracy? This also would extend the deadline for the chief administrator, the mayor, to then provide or review. And let me just, I want to go into my notes and get my exact wording on this. So the proposal would require that the council formally notifies the mayor's office before holding public hearings for certain budget reports, right? In the first year of a mayor's administration. And so again, some people are saying, you got to be kidding me that the council's got to notify the mayor. What happened to separation, right? And having all of these different branches of government doing what they do. Others are saying, but every time you get a new mayor in that first year, they've got a heck of a lot of catch up. And so they need more time in the first year, not the other three, because they get a 4-year term. But in that first year, we've got to give them more time. And that's up to you whether or not you're going to do that. Okay. And if this proposal passes, it would establish a new role for the mayor, right, in assessing the cost of laws before they are passed, and require that cost estimates from the council and mayor are available before the proposed laws are considered at public hearings. And so what does that mean? It means everybody would have to crunch these numbers. So if you are proposing that everybody in New York wears Chucks, I happen to like Chucks, then you've got to figure out what it's going to cost for everybody in New York to have Chucks, right? And who's providing them and from what budget and how often, annually, biannually, whatever that is. And you've got to have those numbers sent to the mayor from the city council. You've got to have the Office of Management and Budget crunch their own numbers and send that to the mayor and the city council. And that has to happen before you even get the public's comment on this. Now, some people will support this because they're saying before you do anything, you got to count the cost. Don't tell me it's a good idea. Is it fiscally sound? Do we have the money for it, right? We want to go to Disney. We all want to wear Chucks, but can we afford it? And people want to know that at the hearing. Or some people feel that people should be, that information should be available. Others are saying, again, now you're usurping city council. City council has its processes. They're elected by the people in 51 different districts. They have the power to create the budget, and their due diligence should be enough. Okay, that was number 3. And forgive me because that one was a little dense, so I did take a little time. Okay, we're gonna move a little faster because these get a little simpler. Number 4, more notice and time before votes on public safety legislation, right? Now, this is about public safety. So that means the police department, the Department of Correction, and the fire department. So I'll say it in the way we live it, right? NYPD, DOC, FDNY. That is what this impacts. That's what this deals with, okay? And it's saying that if you vote yes, it is saying that it would require more or additional public notice and time before city council votes on laws that regarding those 3 agencies, okay? And it says, if you go further into it, that the council must, meaning ain't no way around this, must give 30 days advance notice before voting on public safety laws that would impact police department, fire department, or the Department of Correction, okay? And during that time, it says that the mayor and the affected city agencies, right, would also, they can, not will, not must, but can also hold public hearings to hear additional public input. So what is this one about? This says, city council, again, you guys are making the laws, but before you do, before you make a law, before you get to vote on one, when it deals with NYPD, DOCD, and FDNY, either one of them or all of them, you've got to let the mayor know, whoever the mayor is, 30 days out. And while you're holding your hearings, the mayor can, if the mayor so chooses, hold hearings as well. And the agencies can hold hearings as well in that 30 days. They can't do it at day 31 or 45. They got 30 days to do it. So here's the schools of thought on this. One school of thought is, wait a minute, city council does this, and I'm confident that city council can do this because we vote on them in 51 damn different districts. Two, people that oppose say this is adding way more time to an already bureaucratic process. And sometimes we should not be waiting when there is a concern or if there's a crisis in public safety and there's an outcry. Why would we be waiting 30 extra days before the council can take action? Because didn't I elect them and don't I pay them to take action? Yes. Now there's another school of thought that says, wait, council is going to be making decisions that are going to impact safety, and safety is a top priority in this city. And before they do that, we need more people to ring in the agencies themselves, because what if council has an idea or a proposal that operationally wouldn't make sense, it wouldn't work? Like let's say council says, and I'm just casting this, is not an actual real scenario, but let's say that the council says that the NYPD has to report on something within 12 hours, but their system actually doesn't have the capacity to do that, right? And so these agencies, some of them are saying that it's a possibility that council would have a proposal that the public likes the idea of that isn't operationally feasible, right? That would actually grind things to a halt and would negatively impact public safety. It also says that the mayor, as the administrator, right, is running the administration, would then have more time and possibly be able to see this with the lens of what is happening citywide and not the lens of what is going directly to an agency. These are just some examples. Again, the choice is yours. Number 5, and then we're almost done, and I'm going to stop talking, though my children seem to think I never do. But anyway, that's another seminar. On number 5, capital planning. This is where things get a little dicey and confusing if you're not like really into like city budget and how things get paid for and done. But this says that the city has to assess the cost of maintaining city facilities, right? So we have city facilities, but are they crumbling? Are they falling apart? And it says you've got to assess the cost to fix that. So any of us that are homeowners or you've got a landlord, if the stairs are crumbling, the landlord has to fix it or the homeowner has to fix it. And this is saying you've got to get the cost for that, right? Before you can do that. It talks about city facilities, infrastructure, and investments. And these cost assessments have to be published in the capital planning reports. It also asks that we extend the deadline for these so that these things could be included. Like we're going to extend the planning deadlines and the publishing deadlines for the capital reports. And so what it means, the city's got to assess the cost of maintaining facilities, infrastructure, investments, and it's got to publish these assessments and capital planning reports. And it would expand the criteria used to assess the maintenance costs, right? Like how are they measuring this? How are they figuring this out? It would expand the criteria for that. It would also change the due date for the capital planning reports, because this is going to take more time, and the date associated for public hearings, right? Which means pushing back when they publish a report, which also means then pushing back the date of the public hearing, right? And so some people are like, yeah, by all means, again, you got to count the cost. We can't guesstimate when we're talking about the city budget because you never know when something's going to happen, like a migrant crisis, like COVID. And so we've got to know, right, down to the damn penny, and assess the cost. Take all the time you need to figure out, what is this really costing me? How are you spending my money? Because when we talk about the city budget, it's your money, right? It's my money. It's the money we never see when we get paid because it goes right into taxes, right? Okay, now the other side of this, what some people feel is that the language of the proposal is a little, it could be improved, right? Some say it's actually misleading and that passing the proposal would not improve transparency, right? And in the city's infrastructure planning, and several organizations have commented, three actually, at least to the New York City Campaign Finance, that this is not something that they agree with because it doesn't do anything. It doesn't improve the processes that are already in place. And if we're going to have a ballot prop, then and we're going to make a change, then they feel the change should improve something, and that this one really doesn't, right? But again, choice is yours. Last one. Minority and women-owned business enterprises, right? And film permits and archive review boards. Okay, the only time I'm going to give you my personal opinion, this one is kind of like a gumbo. It's kind of a buffet. There's like 3 different things in here, right? Okay, so what does this one mean? So what this one means is, in the city charter, which is the city's constitution, we would establish the office of the chief business diversity officer, right? That would be included now in the charter. The position exists. There's already a body in there. And I saw in the comments in the chat, thank you for listening to person and information about that role. It's already there, but it is not in the charter, right? And so some feel if it ain't in the charter, 1 mayor later, 2 mayors later, that position could disappear entirely. And the responsibilities and roles and protections provided by that work, that body of work in that portfolio. Okay. Others feel there's no need to put in the charter because the person's already there and they're already working. So what are you bothering us for? It's already there, right? You're not really changing anything. So you're just talking. So that is 2 different schools of thought. The other would be that the mayor's office would designate, meaning decide or choose, which office provides filming permits, right? And that's for student films from NYU, like Spike Lee when he started his joint. That would mean, major movies. That would mean documentaries. That would mean a film project by a local community that want to film the eldest on the block, right? And get their elders in archive. You need permits to do these things and to do them in public places or public streets. And this is saying the mayor's office should decide which office or offices will provide those permits. Different schools of thought on that. Some people say the mayor have enough to do. The mayor don't need to be doing that. Leave that where it is. Others are saying, yeah, that makes perfect sense. Why not? Right? But again, choice is yours. The last part, the third part in this gumbo is that it would combine 2 different offices that handle archives for the city and merge them into one. I don't have enough information about which these 2 offices are and how that would impact their operation, but do understand that there are 2 agencies that are handling, I don't know how much overlap they have, my apologies, and they would merge these 2 agencies into one. And some people are saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I've never heard of a problem with the city archive. Why are you doing this? Why are you? Because restructuring and reorganization always costs money and time and talent and people. And then there are others that are saying, okay, why not? I don't really care, right? Like archive is important. It's an important role. And if you think it'll be more efficient this way, then by all means. Unfortunately, though, the prop does not list the added efficiencies. And so I apologize. I cannot articulate that at this time. Okay? Now I'm going to stop talking. And again, thank you, Assemblywoman Waterman has been a soldier in the streets of Brooklyn and citywide, has been a parent advocate and an excellent partner. And I'm just honored to have been invited to talk to you today and help her continue this body of work and a long-standing service narrative that has done nothing but make Brooklyn better.
Thank you. Thank you, Kathleen. Now on to Kyla. Thank Kyla.
Right. Thank you, Kathleen. It is important to know, and thank you for taking a deeper dive on what voting looks like for Brooklyn in itself, and NYC as a whole. So now we'll have Allison Martinez from Brooklyn Level Up. She'll be coordinating and facilitating our Q&A session. And then we'll popcorn between you, Kathleen, and Jan. Whoever feels the need to answer the questions, you can proceed from there, or you both can answer. Allison, whenever you're ready.
Thanks, Kyla. The first question is, well, these series of questions are from 18 to 23-year-olds. And the question is, why is my vote important? when it sometimes feels like one person can't make a real difference in the outcome?
I'll start, and I'm sure Kathleen has some great things to say here. And I would say every person's vote counts because it's your vote. Your vote is your voice, so you matter. But the power of voting is not necessarily in one person; it's in all of us, and especially for young people. The one area in the city where we do have a registration problem is young voters. Only half of New York City voters 18 to 29, I believe, are actually registered to vote. And I think we would live in a different city if they were registered and they did come out and vote. It's a lot of older people who come out and vote. And so our needs really take precedence. And I think having young people, especially getting together and forming coalitions amongst themselves and being heard. We have seen a lot of young legislators across the country. What a difference it's made to have AOC in Congress, for example, just having her voice. When she was elected, she was 29 years old. There was someone elected to Congress who was only 25, Maxwell Frost. And that doesn't even count the number of people who are city council people, who are mayors, even who are 18 years old. So young people really could make a difference in the world if they registered and voted. That's what I would say.
So I'd like to, and thank you for that again, succinct and right on point. Let's go a little Brooklyn on this one right now, okay? I'm just going to talk about the primary elections. No, let's talk about the general elections first. Let's go larger and hone it down to your neighborhood and your block, because the next important thing that happens after November 5th is ranked choice voting, where every member of the city council is up for re-election, the mayor, the public advocate, and the controller, and several DAs and a number of judges, right? And for the city races, you're going to use ranked choice voting for the second time ever citywide. It's the third time in history, but the last time there were so few people running opposed, you barely had a chance to do it. So it's really the second time citywide. But let's go to this race first. Let's look at presidential races. There is one thing that whenever young people do it, and that's 18 to 25, 18 to 29, when young people do this, everybody stops and listens, and they talk about it forever, and they study it, and they won't shut up, and that's voting. This we saw in the Obama election. We've seen it in issue-based work like climate control, like climate change, right? Young people have taken it to the streets. When young people speak, when we talk about the elections and electorate and candidates, everybody listens. Even if it doesn't feel like it, trust me, I'm in seminars night and day talking about the young vote and when it was cast, where it was cast, why it was cast. They're always polling people. Everybody is obsessed with the young vote. So if you're out there and you're a little bit younger than me, 18 to 29, just a little bit, then please understand that your vote matters. Let's look on the local level, because that's the next important major race, right? On the local level, let me give you some scary numbers. In the primary election in June, some years ago, a district attorney was elected, won her race by 100 votes. 100. Hard stop. And what does that mean? That means that those of us who have more than 100 people in our contacts in our smartphone, those of us who have 100 people following us on social media, those of us who have gone to a wedding and there was at least 100 people that we had to hug and kiss and dance with and say hello, right? And break bread with. That means that we can affect the balance of power with our simple network right there. That's it. Hard stop. There was a city council race in 2013 where that council, I'm sorry, the city council race is who won by 100 votes in the primary. My bad. The district attorney, the person who determines who gets prosecuted, how much time they get if they are convicted, won by 60 votes, 6-0, and that was in Queens. 6-0. That is one barbecue. That's one baby shower. For some of us, that's not even one baby shower, right? We can double and triple that. So you are one barbecue and one baby shower or one wedding away from the balance of power. Yes, your vote counts. Your vote matters. And when the only time it doesn't matter is when you don't cast it.
Good, Allison. Oh, and I wanted to clarify one thing, Daniel. So even though I don't have someone competing against me as assembly member, I'm still on the ballot. So there is a lot of us
Thank
don't
you.
have contests, but like the congresswoman, the senator in our district, but we will be on the ballot as well.
Correct. Forgive me. You're on the ballot unchallenged. Yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Allison.
How do I know if I'm fully informed on the candidates and issues, and where can I find unbiased information to help me make the right decision?
Yeah, that is the struggle um, in all cases. So there is multiple ways to do this. Unbiased is doing a lot of work there. So I'm just saying it's hard to get something that's completely unbiased, but most candidates have the candidate website where they explain their policies, where they explain their philosophies. That's always something you can start with. The voter guide, which I don't have with me right now, does have some information about the candidates themselves. There are specific groups, community organizations, especially here in Brooklyn, who send out surveys and questionnaires to candidates to get them to answer questions. That you can look that up. And I would say we are really lucky here in New York City and in Brooklyn to have access to a lot of local journalism. The city does a great job, the online newspaper, The City. There are tons of like local press organizations that are doing a lot of great work, but there's not one completely unbiased source. So I just want to put that out there. That is just never going to happen. So it is going to require people doing multiple steps in order to get enough information to help them make a decision. And I want to echo something that Kathleen said before about candidates. You're not trying to find a date or your significant other with a candidate. You're trying, think about them more like they're a bus. Are they going in the direction you want to go in or not? So that's why looking up different sources of information, so you can say if climate change is important to you, if the economy is important to you, if housing is important to you, then look at multiple places to find out what these people actually believe. And I will just shout this out. Most people running for office show up all over the place, especially in your neighborhood. Show up where they show up and start asking them questions. That's what civic engagement looks like sometimes, is you showing up where they are and asking them questions.
I love that, Jan. If I could just cut in, absolutely love that. The bus, oh my goodness, because I can't stand waiting for a bus and then I'm on the wrong thing. I run around the city all day. Just on that, it is critical that you know who your elected officials are. It's more important. Can we just talk? It's more important that they know who you are. Okay. So they're going to show up around election time. You need to show up every other time. Okay. Whenever you can, show up and make sure you go and shake their hand so that they know who you are. Because then as they continue to see you, they're going to be listening. Right. And when you show up, make sure they know that you're a voter. I vote, right? I vote and I'm part of this org or that org, but I vote because they know that, wow, if I don't pay attention to what this woman cares about, she's going to keep showing up and she could become a pain. She could become a problem. And so they're going to make sure that you're happy because you're showing up. And that's really critically important.
Before we go to more questions in the chat, is there anyone who wants to come off mute and ask a question, or throw them in the chat if you're more comfortable? Is there anyone who wants to ask a question?
Yes.
Go ahead, Judith.
So my mom lives in Canarsie, and we already have 2 garbage cans already, just like the sanitation. Why do we have to get rid of those? They're brand new, 50 something dollars each. Why do we have to get rid of those in order to purchase these sanitation garbage cans? I don't see the logic. Please tell me.
So I can actually answer this. Hi everyone, Rochelle Nelson, constituent liaison for the Assemblywoman. So the purpose of actually getting the garbage cans that are being, I guess, advertised by sanitation is because they are having new garbage trucks with arms. So the can actually lift the truck up, and then the garbage could be released into the truck. That's why.
Yes. And to be clear, you don't have to get those specific bins for another year. So you can use the ones that you have right now for another year, but in 2025, in November, you will need to use, actually, it could be 2026. I'm going to look that up and put that in the chat, just to be sure that I'm
It's 20.
it's 20 what?
2026.
It's
It is, okay,
January of
I'm sorry. It's
2026.
2026 November. So you got time
January.
to run them wheels down on those 2 carts, okay? On those bins.
January 2026.
January
January?
2026.
Oh, that changed. Okay,
Yes.
forgive me. But you've got time. You can use the bins that you have.
But they're the
But
same bin. The only difference
Okay,
they don't have the sanitation name on
But
it. So I don't
hold on one second, Miss Judith. What Rochelle is gonna, can you give Rochelle your information directly? And Rochelle's gonna call you and you're gonna speak to you offline, because I know that this is very important. It's a very contentious topic because people are concerned about the payment and all that, which we think is very important for you to talk about. But I want to make sure that, I know we're gonna be wrapping up soon, and you could stay at the end too, Ms. Douglas, and we could continue the conversation. But I want to make sure that we stay focused on the voting proposals. But you're bringing up a very good point that's going to lead to a whole lot of sparks of discussion. So does anybody else have a question? I think Ms. Hazel, the other Martinez, was trying to chime in. Were you going to say something, Ms. Hazel?
It seems to me that they're passing a law for something they've already put into effect.
But which one? Are we talking about what's the proposal?
Those same garbage can issue. They're passing a law now to authorize it, but it's already in effect as far as I could see.
Well, one thing, I did put this in the chat. I just want to make sure everyone knows, because there isn't that much room on the ballot. And so it doesn't explain everything that's in that proposal. And I want to make sure everyone is clear. One of the things that we are voting on that is not in effect right now is the Department of Sanitation would have increased authority to go into the parks, go into any city property, and yes, clean things up, but also enforce vendor regulation. So I just want to mention that has not been the case. And so in addition to the police department, we would also have the Department of Sanitation doing vendor enforcement. That is something we also will be voting on. So I understand the whole thing with the garbage. Everyone's like, wait a second, this thing already is happening. So it feels like this one doesn't matter. And I didn't mention this before, but part of the reason why we're all here and talking about these ballot proposals is we want to make sure that you're informed, because Brooklyn historically, people have left ballot proposals blank. So when in 2021, when we voted on the state constitution proposals to have same day registration and excuse-free absentee, more people in Brooklyn left it blank than voted yes or no. So it's really important for you to know it. If you wait until you show up to the poll site, you're going to get this really insane booklet from the Board of Elections that you don't want to read, because it'll probably take you like 25 minutes to read about them. So it's not just the garbage containers, it's also about this increased authority for the Department of Sanitation.
So would that equal to more enforcement for one of the perspectives with small business owners? the vendors that's outside, that is selling products, they will also get enforcement or removed or things thrown away, like stuff that we have seen before.
Yes.
So that would lead to stuff like that. So I know that some of my constituents, because when you pass any legislation proposal, there's unintended consequences as well. So when we say yes, it's some unintended consequences that we want something to be cleaner, but do we want more enforcement as well to almost, because I know that Rochelle is going to be getting a lot of constituent concerns about that, as well as the rats as well. So then it's like, where do we balance that out? So that's what you're hearing. So more enforcement will be happening. And Kathleen, you want to jump in?
Yeah, no, I think this is exactly the point. Assemblywoman Waterman, when we pass these things, what does it mean? What is the impact and how is it operationalized? The reason that some things are proposed to go into the charter is because while it might be happening now, it could easily change. And it makes it harder to change it if you put it in the charter. So is this what we believe in? And is this the way we believe New York City should operate? Or is this what we think today? And that is what you're making this. Yes, you need to make this clean up the damn city and you by any means necessary. Or, you know what? Right now, let's take a look at this. And then if what we are doing right now by putting things in bins isn't enough, and we also need to go into the parks and city spaces, then we'll have council vote on that later. It really depends on how strongly you feel about it. And then being forward thinking about how many unintended consequences do we think could come out of this, right? And again, it really depends on how you are experiencing your New York City, because this is our town. And this is your money that's governing it.
And also, thank you, Kathleen and Jan, for going back and forth with those perspectives. But also, no matter who is the mayor, you want to make sure that when things get changed, that no matter who's the mayor, it's going to benefit most New Yorkers, right? Because everyone, when they govern from certain lens. That's why it's important to vote for the people of your choice that best represent you. Because now, once this is passed and charted, what I'm hearing is that it gives a lot of, more probably power or influence over to the mayor, where there could be some workaround when it comes to certain decisions being made, whether to do something or not. Is that that's what we're hearing?
Yeah, so I mean, neither Kathleen and I discussed the background of the city charter commission, and I just want to make sure everyone knows there is some sort of negativity about how this was done, because the city council wanted to put a ballot proposal on our ballots this fall, but because the mayor called the city charter commission, that takes over what city charter wanted to do. So there is sort of bad feeling there, regardless of what these proposals are. And part of what we get to decide, because it's an amazing power that we have as voters to get to decide on the laws that we want to have, and being able to say, I like this process by which it was done, or I'm really interested in this. These ended up being very technical. I don't know if y'all remember the ones we voted on previously were how we got ranked choice voting, but a lot of those came bottom up. These really came a little bit more top down. But we still have the power to say yes or no. And to me, I'm just going to keep reinforcing them. It's really this idea of it's really important for you to decide yes or no yourself about whether these are the laws you think make a better community for everyone here in New York City, and not leave them blank. I really don't want New York to have more blanks than on these
I
city charter.
appreciate that. Thank you. And Kathleen, were you going to say something?
Just so remember that this is a government. It's a municipal level government, right? Or it's statewide or it's federal. Bureaucracy is a series of processes, okay, that assist us in managing, assessing, moving things forward, or operationalizing, right, our day to day. And so there is a process by which there is a charter commission. There is a process by which there is a council. And you do not want your council and your mayor to be, in lockstep agreeing all the time, because in your own household, we don't all agree, right? The important thing, like Assemblywoman Waterman said, is to remember that what you're doing today and how you're voting it has little to do with today's mayor. It is about mayors to come. Okay. Because it's not one person, it's 4 years. But what we're doing by putting something in the charter is solidifying it and making it there longer and making it more difficult for the tides or politics, to come in and take that away. And so that's why they're important, that you don't slip and you got to flip and think about it and talk about it, and tease it. And if you're, in doubt, you can feel free. I'll put my email in the chat as well. And feel free, email me. And if I don't have the answer, I am never afraid to tell you I don't know. I will get you the answer. And I will contact, my counterparts, assistant commissioners, deputy commissioners, commissioners, and we'll get the answer. Okay.
And I know we're winding down. This was a great discussion, but I just definitely want to make sure that people had a space to be educated in this process, because I'm seeing a lot of confusion, a lot of frustration around it, because it seems like, number one, is something that has been talked about over and over and over again, as far as our making sure when it comes to women's rights and protected status is on the ballot. You kept on hearing that phrase, but people didn't understand that it was the proposal that was being talked about, number one, that was flushed out as a state. It seemed from 2 to 6, that's under the city purview, that there is some contention around that, to be very transparent. And it seems like there's a lot of layers that's been added that may add, right, to this, that may cause more things, that unintended consequences that we may not like or may like. So while we are saying, hey, I want to make sure this is happening, I always explain the 80-20 rule, right? You want 100% best, husband, best man ever. And then this the 80-20. You can get 80% of what you want, and the 20% you may not. What's your non-negotiables? The best man, the best woman ain't gonna come 100%. But if this impact, if I live on Utica Church and I see the vending every day, I may have a problem with that, or I may say, you know what? My grandmother from back home came from Barbados, and the way she got me through school was by vending. My grandmother was a street vendor. So for me, it's gonna look a little different than maybe someone else. Do we need to figure out other things? I'm hearing also proposals and, making something yes and passing it, or should we sit down and study this a little bit more and find like a Caton market style that we can have everybody coalesce in as vendors, so it won't be on the street. So I'm hearing that there's a lot to be said here that's not going to all be said tonight, but I just wanted to make sure that everyone got to hear perspectives. I think, Jan, thank you so much. Brooklyn Voter Alliance, I've been through the clergy, through churches, we've been doing years of this. And I want to thank you, Kathleen. I had years of service with you on the streets, from COVID-19 and crisis to now and beyond. And Allison, thank you so much for always jumping in. She's always civically engaged one way or another. But all of these entities, all these people here, I would say, and everybody here on the task force, we have years before, way before I was elected, doing this work. So I want to get people that's going to give you the real heartfelt, this is what we care about the community. We want to make sure that you make the best decisions that you can and be informed. Allison, was there anything that you want to bring? I know you're out in the streets a lot and you hear a lot of conversations, and they've been, people's been expressing stuff to you. Is anything that we haven't covered here that you think we need to answer while we wrap up?
I feel as though it's been very thorough. I think ultimately it's just like one of the questions, the last questions in the chat. It's about having more opportunity to have these conversations constantly to help people really get it in their head and be not just for this election, but be constantly focused on every election that comes, that they are participating, learning, and educating themselves and others.
Well, it seems like we're going to make a commitment, Jan, Kathleen, Allison, and those who are here, that we're going to continue conversations like this. Kyla, they give you more work. They said they want civic engagement one-on-one once a month, virtually, with coming to you by Allison Martinez and Kyla. So I think that this is something, because Kyla is in charge of the Youth Ambassador Task Force, her and Rochelle, who's on, and they've been doing a great job to elevate the youth voices. We can answer some more stuff in the chat as well. I don't, Jan and Kathleen, if you do have to go, this, it's okay, because we know that our time is spent. It's been 1 hour and 30 minutes, but we thank you for your time on this. And if anybody have any last burning questions, or Allison, if anything in the chat that we should cover before we end, please let us know. Any last questions?
I do
I
think
Monique,
this, okay, go ahead, Marion, because your question was the one I was going to.
yeah, I just wanted to, well, Monique knows this. Today I was sitting at a table at Sundance, and I observed them talking about the election, and a few of them said they don't know what proposal to vote for. So I think a lot of them don't understand what it is. So if there's anybody who could probably come by and, do a quick, going over it with them, we would be appreciate it a lot.
So it sounds like, Kathleen, we're action to book you from 9 a.m. to 8 p.m. in our district from now all the way through November
go.
Up to
5th.
election,
Like
yes.
So
Jen, and when
Because the
you can't,
seniors are
Jen,
confused.
yes,
I'm
and
coming.
then Allison, you and I are going to study this recording, and we're going to make sure that we could be ambassadors to make sure, because we do have to go
Yes.
to our centers, we have to go out, we have to go to our
Yes.
schools. This is important. Our lives
Yes.
depend on this, and we don't want to wake up, on November 5th, happy one way, right? Because we got who we wanted in, but then like, what's happening? What changed? And with those proposals that weren't being paid attention to, because there's so much distractions. As we know, there's hope because there's leadership here that is in the room that's great right here. As you see stuff on the news, it's impactful, it's mentally impactful, and all that. Let's stay focused, block the noise. Let's educate each other. Let's make sure we spread the message. That's how we combat any negativity that's happening. So God is in control. Whatever is going to happen, it's all going to be cleared and figured out. But what can we have control over? Our vital voice, our vote, making sure our neighbors are educated, and making sure that we are educated so no one could take that from you. From slavery to now, our minds, our heart can never be touched. So let's make sure that we keep on pointing to each other, as some people may have some issues because there's a lot going on. And I think Hazel, as I did my whole speech, Hazel wanted to say something really quick.
I really want to know what is happening to encourage young people to vote, because at my age now, I feel like I'm voting for their lives. And I really would like them to, I'm voting for their lives because these things are going to impact them for a long time to come if they, if they aren't active now.
Got you. Kathleen, you want to take that? Because we did something
Yes.
important on Monday.
So-
On Monday, we were together. And then Kyla or Rochelle from the Youth Ambassadors, if y'all want to take that. Go ahead, Kathleen.
Wonderful. So, and what you're saying is critical, Elder, because the 18 to 25 and 18 to 29, particularly in the African American community, and this is studies conducted by African American pollsters, right? They do exist. Never hear about them. They are concerned that in the presidential election, none of the candidates are talking about what they care about, right? What they want to see is peace. They want to see ceasefires. They want to see climate. This is what they want to hear about, right? And they feel that those that came before us, before them, have totally messed it up. And so some of them are undecided because of this, or they are feeling that, you know what, I don't know if this really matters because you're not talking to me. However, that being said, every year we go into the schools during Civics Week. We go into New York City public schools. And this past March, during Civics Week, which happens usually second week in March, we registered 9,300 students and pre-registered. In New York State, at 16 and 17, they can pre-register to vote. And we don't stop at Civics Week because, as the Assemblywoman said, we were just at Erasmus High School and we registered more students to vote and pre-registered. Today, I prepared and dropped off over 500 pre-registration and registration. Many, I think it was over 300 that are going to vote for the first time this November. And so it continues. So don't let them sit on your couch. And ask them what they think. They're talking about it. They're posting about it. We're just not engaged in that conversation with them. And so if we want them to come to the polls and come with us, bring them along and then listen to what it is they're saying. Stop telling them about the ancestors bleeding for it because the ancestors are dead to them. Right? They want to know, what about me? What about what I care about? And who's listening to me? Remember, my me generation. And yes, it is about what they want. And so engage them in those conversations. They have opinions. They are paying attention. We're just not paying enough attention to what they're saying.
What I appreciate about this conversation, we spent a lot of time talking about the youth, which is our future, which is great. Everybody has asked that question. Well, so speaking about that, we have Rochelle and Kyla both raising their hands to answer. So I saw Rochelle hand up first. So Rochelle, can you tell, I don't know if you want to tell your age. I know you just
Yeah,
graduated. Go ahead, you want to
yeah.
tell your age?
So, um, I feel like Kathleen really, hit it on the nail because that's exactly how I feel. I'm 22 years old and I could remember seeing President Obama like what's it called, when I was in elementary school on like the TV. We had a whole thing in the auditorium, the roll TVs. I mean, I'm not that old, but that's when we had the rolling TVs. And I remember watching him and it was a whole big thing. And that's how, I guess that was my first introduction to being civically engaged. And now, being 22, I'm working for an elected official. So I think that having those moments where you guys are coming to the kids, because they're not going to go to you, they're never going to go to you. So being in those spaces where the youth are and actually engaging with them with situations that they really care about, I think that's imperative to having more younger children wanting to vote and wanting to be engaged in politics, whether it's local or federal politics.
You for that. That's great explanation. Kyla, you wanted to add to the conversation. Please let them know how old you are if you feel comfortable. This is great perspective.
Yes, I agree with both Kathleen and Rochelle. And I was gonna say that I've noticed a lot of the times that youth aren't properly educated on the political side of government at all altogether. And sometimes it leaves room for them to have a lot of misconceptions about government that kind of alters their mindset or their viewpoint on who they should vote for, why it's important to vote. So going into the schools like you all have, it makes all the difference because now you're able to kind of change their perspective per se. And I know that a lot of young people in the conversations that I've had with young people and trying to get them to go and vote. And I've noticed that they are very apprehensive because they don't understand the importance of why they need to vote. I think a lot of them are living in the moment and they don't feel like it's important now, but later down the line, they don't realize that the people that you vote for, the laws and the legislation and the different stuff, the proposals, those make a difference maybe 5 to 10 years later down the line. So definitely I agree going into the schools and doing those things. It does make all the difference from what I've observed.
All right, thank you. And Kyla also is 20 years old. Okay. So as you see, we're making sure that we have young ones working in the office as well to contribute to conversation. So Kyla is leading civic engagement. And I know that some the presenters have to jump. That's okay. What I will do to tell you right now, and those who have to go can go, I just want to thank everyone for their participation. I want to thank all the presenters, but I will stay behind along with my staff to answer questions. And if whoever do have to jump, it's okay. But I think this is very important that we're getting people engaged. So I don't want anyone to feel that they were cut short if they have some burning questions left. And whatever I could answer, I'll stay back to answer. All right. Do anybody else have any questions that they would like to ask before we close out? We have about a good, I guess, say 10 more minutes that I could give.
Yeah, I have a question. Why is it how can we re-educate the voters that when they get to the poll, it's not just the president, but there's other people, even though it's not the president, there are other people that they need to vote for. Some of them just go to vote for the president. So let's assume if the president wasn't connected to the vice president, which means the vice president will never come in. So how can we change their mind? How can we engage some of those churches that have a larger followers to kind of educate them? Because last week I was having a conversation with some friend of mine, and they were just like, "Well, I'm just going to vote for the president. That's all. I don't care about nobody else." We have to have a different mindset than that, because we will not go any place.
So, Ms. Douglas, what I would say, you're perfectly correct. And what I would say is, what church do you go to? And can you book us to come to your church? because everyone here is not an I thing, it's a we thing. Everyone here can do a part. Even if your part is just like, I want to make sure that we have someone come to speak at the church, or you know that there's a forum that we could speak, or you yourself speak about it. That's one of the ways. But Jan, I'll let you also, if you wanted to say something really quick before we close up about how to get engaged, but definitely go into the churches. We are, from my office, we are in the older adult centers. We are in the schools. As you heard Kathleen, I was with her on Monday at the high school. We are making sure we send out information. As you see, this is on my assembly capacity that we are talking about this. So we are doing all that we can in this space. I walk door to door corridor for the small business, and we've been giving this information out as well. And every single venue I am in, we're talking about this. So I don't know if you want to say something real quick, John, to add to that.
Yeah, I would just say something really quick. Anytime you have a conversation like this, I always ask people what's an issue that matters to them. And no matter what issue it is, I always connect it to, oh, that's something on the state level. Your state senator, your assembly person really matters. They're the ones who make the laws about this. Or at BVA, we try to get people to vote in every single election. So you heard from Kathleen how poor our last city election was in 2023. We talk about issues that are on the city level. It's like, well, your city council person makes a difference there, or the mayor makes a difference there. And really doing some of this work about civic education, about, it's not, the president doesn't decide where the bus goes. Like things that affect your life on a daily basis, the president is not going to decide that. And then, when you're talking about laws, like just when we were just talking about proposal 1 about protecting the rights of women and LGBT people and folks with disabilities, that comes from the state level. That's what the state offices are for. And so things that matter to people, just connect them and like help them see that all of these aspects of government are things that we can influence. So having that power, the vote is really powerful, and not like throwing it away. Like, not that they're throwing it away, but
Thank you, Jan. And we have Allison, you wanted to speak, and I think Hazel. I think y'all trying to double team us here.
I just want to say one thing. Being on these calls is one step, but I also think we have to retrain voters to also realize it is not only the responsibility of elected officials to get us knowledgeable about whatever issues and people are running. Voters have a responsibility to go out there and research and learn for themselves. That at the end of the day, it's our vote and we're responsible for it. We have to take it seriously and not wait for that one elected official to come visit all 300 million people who live here and all that, personally telling them what their positions are. We have a responsibility. We have to own that too. So that's
Thank
it.
you. Well said. There's only so many people we could get to, right? Thank you so much. Well said. Not an I thing, it's a we thing. And Hazel, you would like to say something as well?
I think we also have to educate young parents as well, because I know as a young parent, I took my child to the polls with me every single time, to the point where she was bigger than me and trying to push me out the way, take my vote. But because then they're excited about voting from a young age, so they know it's something that a responsibility that you have, because it is so important. You can't just complain about what's not right if you're not part of the solution and helping to make decisions. And our local elections are just as important as who the president is, because it determines a lot about your daily life.
yes. I love that idea. I just used that idea, sorry, at a youth summit on Saturday about the power of intergenerational voting, and like having grandparents and parents bring their kids as a poll worker. It's fantastic to see families all voting together.
And now we have the product of Allison Martinez here helping us lead this conversation, the one that was pushing her aside, she said, to make sure that was her mama telling on her. And I want to say, I just want to ask one thing, Jan, I don't know if you know. I know for the elderly and those with disabilities, I was hearing that there was some kind of voter adaptations for that. Did you hear of anything? I know there's the one that sit down and you could like you could vote electronically, you put it in. I forgot, oh gosh, I should know this.
Yeah,
I'm
so
election law committee. I should know what it's called, but I've done it myself just to see the process. But I think there's more, right? There's more
yeah, so
adaptation accommodations this year.
yeah, so there's one thing I want to make sure everyone knows when you go to vote. Any person, you don't need to be a person with disabilities or an older person to use the ballot marking device. It is a separate piece of equipment. So instead of you going to the privacy booth and filling in the circles with your pen, you can go to the ballot marking device, put your ballot in, and Kathleen mentioned this. There, you can touch the screen. There's a little paddle. If you can't use your hands, there's something that you can use your breath to control that. Or if you want, you can also, again, you can get help from people in the poll site. You can ask the poll workers. There will be a bipartisan team of poll workers helping you. You can also hear it in different languages. You can have it read to you. And anyone can use that machine. So I know tons of people, they don't like marking the circles, so they just go to the ballot marking device themselves. There is an adaptive early mail ballot if you need that mailed to you as well. When you make the request, when someone makes the request for an absentee ballot or an early mail ballot, you can say that you need the adaptive ballot. So it's printed in a way that you can either use your own device to read it to you, or it's easier for you to fill out. The other thing about the ballot marking device, it will make the ballot bigger so you can just see the choices easier. I had somebody last election, she forgot her glasses, so we just had her use the ballot marking device so she could see the work. Or if somebody has like Parkinson's or some kind of, or they broke their arm, you know, that they write with or something like that. But you don't need an excuse to use the ballot marking device. And it is in every single poll site in the city. So I want to say that's a big improvement from the New York City Board of Elections. Every single poll site has one.
Yeah. Thank you. I keep on forgetting that you work at the poll sites as well. And I was
Guys,
able
I
to
just
use,
wanted
I was able
one
to
quick
use the
thing.
machine,
That
the ballot
machine,
marker as well. Go ahead, Mary.
that machine that she's speaking about, I usually man that machine for the seniors when I work at the poll. It's a
Okay.
machine where they can come and sit down if they have any disabilities. They come, they vote right there. It's a machine, we can expand it to them. If you have a hearing problem, we have the headsets they can use, and they can vote right there, and we just send it right in. We take it in for them, push it in the machine for them.
Another poll worker. Thank you so much. So you know who's gonna be getting
Yeah,
these
I'm
calls.
working that machine too.
Oh, okay, Sion.
All these poll workers, love all these.
All right, good. So it's good that y'all on to hear this as well. And I think the last thing, I know this question was asked of me about transportation. Is there any particular agency that does transportation for elderly or those who need to get a ride? I haven't heard.
The assessor ride. If you're a person with disabilities, you can get an assessor ride. The problem with assessor ride, just want to be clear, it does take some time. You need to like really plan a significant portion of your day in order to do that. Monique, I will look this up. I think in the past, Lyft in New York City has offered free rides. Again, seniors will have to be able to call up the Lyft themselves or ask someone else to do that. But I think in the past they have offered free rides to voters who need it. I'll look that up for you.
Okay.
And follow
Perfect.
up. And I would also just encourage everyone to look up where their poll site is. There are more early voting poll sites. I've been out on the streets every day, and sometimes people are like, no, that one's too far away from me. My election day poll site is across the street or something, just so people know we have 1,200 plus poll sites in New York City. I don't remember what the geographic limit is, but they're all supposed to be pretty close to people. So I would also encourage people, if early voting depends, you know, you don't necessarily want to leave it to election day if you're sick or something, but
or absentee ballots, right?
yeah, an absentee ballot.
All right,
And everyone can get an early mail ballot. You don't have an excuse.
thank you. And I have one question. Did anybody here get a mailer from the city council member explaining the proposals? Did anyone get a mail explaining? Because I know that some city council members is mailing out proposal explanations and impact, like some similar to what we went over to explain. Marianne, you got one?
Yeah.
No.
It's a card and it lists the different proposals and, you know, tell you if you vote yes or if you vote no. Yes.
Oh, okay. So if you could definitely take a picture and send that to me as well. I would love to see the explanation on that. I haven't seen it yet, but I heard it was very informative.
Yeah.
I think that anybody else, we have like we could do 2 more minutes and we could wrap up, but I think this was very, very important discussion. You know, Gawain, make sure out there in Georgia, you're out there supporting. I heard that, you know, there's a lot of important people that was around Georgia. So make sure you spread that word. Let's call our people around the state to make sure that they encourage. And Kyla, get to those college friends, right? And your friend group in the youth to make sure that they are you and Rochelle and getting that vote out. Is anybody have any questions? I see.
Actually, here it is.
All right, so send it, if you could definitely send it to me. That's from city council, correct? Your city council member?
Okay.
That's from your city council member, that particular mailer? Okay, so please take a picture, send that to me. And I think that everybody here has spoken and given questions. We have Mr. Waterman, my father-in-law. Anything for the veterans? Any questions you have that you need to ask before we log off? I don't know if he's still on. All right, but I think that we have covered it all. So thank you, everyone. Have a good night. Kyla, stay on to save the chat. So if any of those questions weren't answered, we can.
I got one thing though. Well, I got one thing though.
Yes, Gawain. I knew Gawain, you was coming. I called you before. Go ahead, Gawain. Go ahead,
We do need to do more veteran outreach, and we do need to do more veteran outreach. So.
Okay. Anything particular? Anything particular? I know that my father-in-law is a judge advocate for Dory Miller Post, so maybe we could get a lot of those organizations to see what they're doing as well. But do you have anything in particular?
No, we've still been having a problem with the VA, getting the VA to participate in anything we do.
Okay, so what we can see, if Rochelle is still on for my office, we could see from the New York State Veterans Agency what they do in the New York City one and see if they have anything that we have. So Gawain, if you could hold us accountable to that and follow up with us.
Yeah,
and you could and Mr. Waterman, if you can also help us with that. We got 2 veterans on the line. So thank you so much. And right now we will end. Kyle and us will stay behind. Allison, thank you so much for always supporting, and thank everyone, especially everyone's staff. Let's give it up for Kyla. Kyla, you did really good. Good job. I know it was nerve-wracking, but you did really good. You cut Allison a couple of times. She's not bleeding. You're good, Allison.
I don't care about those things. You know that.
But it was really good. This was a very amazing workshop. We had almost 2 dozen people on the call, and I think that this definitely is going to go far. So thank you, everyone. Gawain, I see you doing here over there. I was trying to catch a picture, but you took off the screen. So, but thank you, everyone, and have a nice night.